cousin of the king, on that Amaria device. Jail. Don't talk about those things. Like, which brings me to the latest, to our case at hand, the latest case. And by the way, before I lead to the latest case, I would say that right before NINI, the most shocking case was in 2010, right after Al Jazeera, when Le Journal, managed by Abu Bakr Jamei, a great journalist, who has to voluntarily exile himself out of Morocco now. Le Journal was also, just like Telkel, a very bold, informative, investigational magazine. The government did not appreciate over the years what it says. And in October 2009, the regime used the judicial system, just like it does. You find anyone who wants to file a defamation lawsuit for anything, and the court, in a 10-minute hearing, will impose extremely heavy fines. That's what happened to Le Journal also. And Le Journal had to shut down, which was very, very sad for the press in Morocco, that a newspaper has to leave because people are suing them. There's something I never really understood, is that in some cases it's fines, in some cases it's jail. I have my personal, I don't know, I mean, why do you put Le Journal impose heavy fines and in other cases you send them to jail? I don't know, I don't have the answer to this question. I noticed, however, that most of those who go to jail are Arabic newspapers or magazines. Most of those who don't are French. Telkel, Le Journal, very provocative. Equally, I wouldn't say provocative, but equally bold. So maybe it says, I don't know how to analyze that. Before we talk about Rashid NINI, I would like to read, because the Committee to Protect Journalists wanted to be here today, and they couldn't, and they insisted that we read this brief statement. I promise it's only 2 paragraphs, and so I'm going to read it out loud to you. New York, June 9th, 2011. CPJ condemns politicized prison sentence for Moroccan editor. Today's 1-year prison sentence against Rashid NINI, executive director of the Moroccan daily Al Masa and owner of Al Masa Media Group, is the latest instance of the Moroccan government settling scores with critical journalists through a judiciary that is subservient to the executive branch. A judiciary that is subservient to the executive branch. The Committee to Protect Journalists said today. Today's politicized verdict against Rashid NINI is yet another example of how the Moroccan judiciary is utilized to curb press freedom. The Committee to Protect Journalists, Middle East and North Africa Program Coordinator Mohammed Abdel Daim said, critical journalism is not a crime. King Mohammed VI must ensure that his March pledge of extensive constitutional and structural reforms extends to journalism. NINI was detained, and they underlined in the press release the word detained, in late April, and charged with denigrating judicial rulings, as well as compromising the security and safety of the homeland and citizens. By reading this, I'm thinking that he's like the best friend of bin Laden or something, you know. NINI is a frequent critic of government policies and has written about widespread corruption among government officials. On numerous occasions, he has called for the annulment of Morocco's anti-terrorism law and for increased political freedom. End of the statement from the Committee to Protect Journalism. Just to go back about this judiciary thing. Yeah, it should be mentioned obiter dictum that, as you may or may not know, the court system and the judiciary in Morocco is here, down, and the interior ministry is here. It should be the other way around. The justice should control the police. The police controls the justice. Police and intelligence control the justice system. They give them instructions, directions, orders. And if you're not happy as a judge, you'll be transferred, revoked, fired. So judges themselves are, I believe that Morocco needs a committee to protect judges. But that's another case. They need to show a little bit more courage. Now to the NINI case. Who's Rashid NINI? Rashid NINI is a journalist who was from scratch, nothing, very poor, immigrated to Spain illegally, clandestinely, came back and started writing a book about illegal immigration from his personal case. From there on, he discovered a talent. This was, I believe, 15 years ago, something, or 20, a talent for writing, and created with friends this Al-Masa newspaper in Arabic. Al-Masa, I will say, is the written local version of Al Jazeera. It's the Moroccan Al Jazeera in paper, read by everybody, usually by the masses. That's why it's another mistake to detain this gentleman. And Masa does investigative journalism, denounces corruption, denounces abuse. And his best famous column was a little column on the paper called Shuf Shuf. We could translate as see and you'll see. Just see and you'll see. Like, look at it and maybe you'll see something. So in this case, in April, Rashid NINI wrote a special report. I mean, they had him on the radar screen for a long time for other matters, plenty of other matters. I mean, every daily column of Rashid NINI is like, scares the government. But on this one, he wrote an extensive article about the intelligence system, the DST, the Direction de Surveillance du Territoire, and said a couple of things about them. Among, I don't have all the details here of the article, but he mentioned that they have, security services have a secret detention center in the city of Temara, where people get, if they're against the regime, they still today get arrested and tortured and don't see a judge if they ever see light again. So he wrote that. He located it precisely on a map, because it's in a forest, you have to find it, it's really hidden. And actually, right after he did that, a bunch of protesters found it and went to protest there, and they got beaten by the police. So he did that. He brought witnesses of the first political detainees that were there, and they said, yes, I was there a few years ago, and here's what happened to me. Criticized the head of the director of intelligence, and so forth. Basically, the whole thing was about intelligence. Shortly thereafter, he got arrested on charges, really odd charges. And the first thing I say, so I don't forget, is that journalists in Morocco have a specific laws that apply to them for the discipline and for the way they should lead their work, and for the sanctions, which is the press code, le code de la presse. In this case, going back 25 years backwards, the government decided to not look at the press code because it's more favorable to the journalist than the criminal code. Ignored it, which is very illegal, but there's no judge to talk to. And applied regular criminal law, and we do know that very often in non-democracies, the penal code is a great repressive tool. You can accuse anyone of anything. So he was accused of charges like, there are 5 or 6 of them, but I'll just state some of them. Undermining government institutions. What does it encompass exactly? I don't know. Criticizing security services. Divulging false information and violation of the honor of public officials. Things like that. They just, found some things and put him in jail. Moroccan law also, even if we're going to apply the criminal law, which we shouldn't anyway, Moroccan law provides for bail, just like here, and it's rarely granted. You can be free on bail pending judgment if you have guarantees, if you're known in the community, if there's no flight risk. Obviously, there's no flight risk with Mr. NINI, and from the beginning, we sensed at the hearings that it was a political case, and humiliation also of himself and the defense was also a purpose. Can you give just a small anecdote that I saw in court when I was there? Mr. NINI has 500 voluntary lawyers representing him. That's how big of a figure. It's unheard of in Morocco to have 500 lawyers. The 500 lawyers wanted to attend the hearing, and the judge, made sure to put us in the smallest room possible, standing, with no AC, with shut doors. You, as a lawyer, as a human being, you couldn't stay 2 more minutes before you had to go drink water, sweat, take off your clothes and come back. It was hell. Repeated requests for another room, denied. It was also an indirect message of the government to also lawyers, the defense, so to show them who is still in charge. So even the conditions of the incarceration of the trial were bad. As of right now, I mean, last week he was sentenced to 1 year, to one year in jail. The appeal is still pending. As I left Morocco 2 days ago, there was no specific date yet for his, because after the first judgment, you need the court to determine an appeals date. There's no appeals date yet. So we're waiting for that. Also, very worrisome is the fact that he got on a hunger strike, and he's a very resilient and resolved person. And I do not even want to see the consequences for Morocco and its government if Mr. Nini died while in detention, because he does have health problems. The condition last about this case is that the conditions of incarceration are also humiliating as an intellectual and as a press person. Against all international penitentiary rules, he's denied reading and writing. And actually, he told me, I saw him in jail a couple of times, he said, you know what, I want a pen, just a pen, so I can write, because every day I write. No pen. He's subject to the only one in that jail, and you know, the criminals, the terrorists, you name it, in a jail. And he's the only one who's been searched twice a day, strip searched bodily. He's not allowed to pray in the same mosque as the main mosque with the other detainees. So it's some kind of isolation. And I mean, we really do not know what possibly he could have done to deserve this. That's pretty much it. And the last thing that I would say, again, I reiterate it because it's all the more unacceptable, is that his deputy and a close friend of mine last week was severely beaten in the street. Again, we're not accusing anybody because we don't have any proof. But he had, Mr. Helatash had received threats, and just his duties and his job, his function, raised a lot of concern as a relationship as to a possible, very plausible link between the two cases. As a conclusion, I'd like to say two things. I personally believe, as the international coordinator for his defense team, we have two defense teams. We have a coordination, a domestic coordination and national coordination. We are resolved, we're decided to use every way possible to raise this case to the international attention, so he gets released immediately.